But we begin this morning with President Trump's new comments on Iran. Madeleine Rivera live for us in D.C. Maddie.
Good morning, Carly and Todd. President Trump says he's willing to wait a little more in order to get the right answers from Iran, but he warns things could escalate quickly if they don't get the right deal.
We're going to give this one shot. I'm in no hurry. You know, everyone think, oh, the midterms, I'm in a hurry. I'm in no hurry. Ideally, I'd like to see few people killed as opposed to a lot. We can do it either way, but I'd like to see few people killed.
Reuters reports Tehran is reviewing the responses from the U.S. and that the Pakistani army chief is considering traveling to Iran today to help with the negotiations. The president has rejected previous proposals, deeming them insufficient. Tehran has reportedly demanded control of the Strait of Hormuz, lifting of sanctions, and withdrawal of U.S. troops, and has offered no resolution for its nuclear program, which is a red line for the president. He repeated his warning that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon during his commencement address at the Coast Guard Academy on Wednesday, and a lot of people agree with that sentiment. Fox News polls show about 65% of registered voters do think the U.S. is winning the war in Iran, but a large swath of Americans still reject the military action in the Middle East. The number of voters who oppose the conflict grew from 55% to 60% from April to now. Affordability, guys, continues to dominate the political landscape, unsurprisingly, with only 23% rating the economy positively. Carly and Todd.
Madeleine Rivera kicking us off here on a Thursday. Maddie, thank you. Meantime, President Trump addressing his reportedly tense phone call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after calling off a planned strike on Iran this week. Watch.
What have you said to Prime Minister Netanyahu about Iran and how long to hold off on strike?
He's fine. He'll do whatever I want him to do. He's a very good man. He'll do whatever I want him to do.
Elliot Kaufman, member of the Wall Street Journal editorial board, joins me now. Is that true? Do you believe that is the case, that Netanyahu will do whatever Trump tells him to do?
It's essentially true, but it's true only for Trump. Ask Joe Biden if Netanyahu would do whatever he asked, and you will get a very different answer. And the reason why isn't complicated. Netanyahu has to act in defense of Israel's core security interests. With President Biden, he knew that when push came to shove, Biden would tell him to de-escalate, stand down, whether that's leaving Hamas's stronghold on the border, Hezbollah's missile arsenal in the north, or Iran's nuclear program and missile program accelerating. With President Trump, it's a totally different story. President Trump has shown himself committed to stopping, preventing Iran's nuclear program like no American president ever has. So when he says hold off, Israelis say, of course, they trust him.
Okay, but
so
what do you make of the
shots.
tension reported by Axios between the two in that phone call? Is that natural at this stage of a ceasefire when one party, Israel, wants to get going and one party is like, hold on, we want to try diplomacy?
On one level, it makes perfect sense. Israel's ready to resume the fight on now. President Trump has said he wants to exhaust every last diplomatic possibility here, even if Iran really hasn't shown so much up to this point. But we saw similar leaks of very similar phone calls, spats, tensions, daylight between the U.S. and Israel as a decoy before previous strikes. And so we do have to watch out for that.
It's a real point. Real good point. Trump said he's in no hurry to make a deal with Iran. How does Iran read that?
Well, it's good for it to hear that President Trump isn't in a hurry, isn't desperate. But at this point, the ceasefire has dragged on for longer than the war itself. And that's even as Iran has reneged on reopening the Strait of Hormuz and has fired several times now on U.S. forces, on Gulf allies. And so, a 30-day ceasefire extension, which is essentially what people are talking about now, I think that would tell Iran that we have an extreme reluctance to resume the fight, and that's not a helpful message.
It is not helpful. Based upon the lack of a deal so far, Elliot, do you think diplomacy really, in reality, has run its course?
I think it has, because both sides are very far apart on the key nuclear issues. Iran still refuses to dismantle underground nuclear sites. It still refuses to hand over all of its enriched uranium. And so what that says to anyone paying attention is that Iran still wants a nuclear weapon, and it's still trying to leave that path open. I think President Trump knows that, but he wants to give it every last shot and see what he can squeeze out of Iran first.
Despite all this, the oil markets, oil's plummeting this week. So the oil markets seem to see something that maybe the rest of us don't. Who knows what they see, but time will tell. And we also have to always remember, even though President Trump said, I don't feel the pressure with the midterms are fast approaching. Next week is June. Midterms are in November, so we got to watch for that. Elliot Kaufman, got to leave it there. Thank you, sir, for your time. Appreciate it. Carly, over to you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.